Is this going to be too loud? No. Okay. Oh, wow. I'm going to sound like a smoker. Awesome. Everything all set. Just wait for the loud cars to pass. Welcome to Content and Capable. You might have noticed that this sounds a little bit more different to what you normally hear. And that's because we're not going to have a normal episode today. I'm not chatting with anyone super interesting or super insightful. I'm actually just here to chat to you, listener. And I've got a couple of things. I really have a list. I'm going to kind of speak off the top of my head. So I apologize if it gets a little rambly, but I'm really going to try to make sure that I kind of cut this really nice and short. So first of all, thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure and an honor to have such an amazing audience of listeners to listen to the podcast. I was having a look through a couple of messages that I was sending to Christina, who heads up the Movie Night Crew Network. And it was about this time last year that I sent in the trial episode for Content and Capable, which is where I consider the start of Content and Capable. It's not the first episode because I was very controlled in how I released my first episode, but it was definitely the start of creating content consistently and almost basically full time for Content and Capable. And it's the first time I've ever done this. I have never really been the kind of person to create or be consistent with the creation of content on the internet. It's not something that comes naturally to me. As I've said a lot of times on the podcast, I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't grow up with a huge amount of access to technology for a variety of reasons. But doing this has really helped me become a lot more comfortable in the way I speak, in my own voice, in the way I can hold a conversation. And that's all been because of listeners like you contributing and engaging and even just like being an ear to the conversations that I get to have. When I started this podcast, I thought that it was going to be very much like cut and dry, answer, questions that are really, really boring, taxes and paying bills and, how to hold a conversation or how to, get a haircut and things. And I thought it was going to go in that direction. And you might have seen a couple of things that kind of headed in that direction, especially at the start where I spoke a lot about practical things that people did. However, I pretty quickly made the decision that I wasn't going to head in that way. I was going to head in more of a content, an emphasis on the content part of Content and Capable, where I speak to people who are creating content or are following their dreams and figure out how they are content with their, amazing lives, but also feel capable as an adult. Because it's a hard balance to get. And it's something that I've not been privy to because the people around me right up until before I started doing this podcast have been very, very solid in where they wanted to go and what they want to do. And it's been really amazing to chat to such a variety of people who are so invested and interested in what they do and speak to them about, the misgivings that they've had, the missteps that they've had, in doing these kinds of things. And it's amazing. It's been a year, and a lot of changes have happened in the last year. I've gone from being a naive kind of second-year journalist who thought, they knew everything, to almost finishing my degree, applying for jobs that I'm looking, at staying with for a long time now, and just really enjoying where I am. And if we look at the premise of Content and Capable and even just the name, I definitely think that I'm embodying that a lot more than I was when I started the podcast. When I started, I can't quite remember whether I was still living in my grandparents' place. I think I sent my initial messages to Christina when I was living there. And I moved house, and then I was living living in the city, all on my own for the very first time. And it was quite a daunting experience. And I think it really helped change the direction, not only of the podcast, but also how I, live my life. I think it was something that was quite insightful. And if you listen back to the episodes, especially around that June, July period, and then heading into August, although August was a bit of a crazy time because I was doing so many different things, it wasn't even funny. I really kind of hit my stride. That's where, despite all the craziness that was going on around me and the transitions that were happening in my life, the changes and the important decisions that I was making, I had this consistency of sitting down with someone and speaking about their life every week. And it was fascinating because as I've said before, I've never really done something this consistent. And having to do that and having to be responsible for the consistency that I output has been very eye-opening. If anyone has ever committed to anything on a long term, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it is a podcast or a social media brand, I highly commend you because it's very stressful and it's very hard to continuously do that kind of thing. And I have learned so much doing that. I'm currently losing my voice because I'm not very well. But yeah, speaking to other people has really, really opened my eyes as well to the importance of listening. Now, while I'm speaking at you right now, I don't intend this to go for very long, but the importance of listening was something that kind of was lost on me as a child. I lived in a very large household, the eldest of 10 children now. And so I was always having to constantly assert my opinion. And so now standing back and listening to what someone has to say to me has become really, really important. And I can't, I can't believe the amount of personal growth that this podcast has allowed me to do. It's also been a year of really, really interesting challenges as well. Regardless of COVID and everything like that, it's been really quite interesting to find my identity as I finish up my education and head out into, as my university likes to call it, the real world. And it's quite amazing. I am so looking forward to it. I think if you asked me a year ago of what I thought of leaving uni and going into a job, I think I would have been quite nervous, but it's been amazing and I can't wait to see where that will take me. Yeah, I'm just going to kind of wrap up now. So for those who have listened from the start, thank you for your patience. This would have been incredibly frustrating for you to listen to, especially seeing my contemporaries at the restricted section and all the Elder Scots were so much better than me at the time. I'm not saying I'm better than them now, but wow, they were miles ahead. For those who have only just started listening and this is your first episode, A, welcome. Thank you for listening. B, go and check out the other episodes. I really, really am so proud of all the episodes I've done. And I'm so glad that I've been able to have these conversations with people and share them on the internet. Because I don't think that access to information should be restricted. I think that, giving other people access to conversations that I've been able to have has been pretty amazing. And see, if regardless of what kind of listener you are, how often you listen, whether you binge it, whether you listen every now and then, thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. It's really given me so much value in my life and so much fun. I've never had more fun working on a project in my life than working on this podcast. And your support means the world to me. Please, please, please look after yourself. Pop in, say hi, pop into my social medias or the podcast social medias. Come and say hi. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I'm Sam. If you don't know where to find me, go and check out the other episodes. And hopefully I'll see you next week for another brand new amazing conversation. Thank you.